All right, everyone, welcome to another official Ideas for Us podcast. I am Clayton Ferrara, the Executive Director of Ideas for Us. Today we have a really wonderful conversation. It is January 13th, 2022 already. Time is certainly flying by and in the now. We have a really exciting year planned. This is going to be our first podcast of 2022. So for all of our listeners and our audience, congratulations, you made it. And we are just thrilled to continue pushing forward in this decade. Today, we're joined by One Tree Planted, a really fantastic organization that is helping to plant trees all around the world. We're joined today by their founder, Matt Hill, and also Jodie Couture. And we are really excited to not only update our audience on the wonderful work that they're helping us to accomplish, but also the broader impact that tree plantings are having around the world. So for starters, welcome everyone. We're also joined by Kristin Anderson today of Ideas for Us. So let's just start by saying hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. Let's just jump right in. Tree plantings. Pretty important stuff. I think it's hard to make a case or argument against all of the good that comes from planting trees. But let's just start off, one of you, I'd love to get an overview of what is One Tree Planted and why trees? Why is this such an important advancement in sustainability to take up as an action?
Sure. I mean, I'll jump in. So yeah, the founders started it in 2014, and I knew people wanted to help the environment. And when you plant a tree, I talk about the 6 pillars. It's helping with air quality, water quality, biodiversity, creates jobs, helps with health, and helps with sequestering carbon. When you plant a tree, it's tangible. So if you donate $1, and I always use that expression, together we can plant a forest, and $1 or $2 here, and you can make this impact that's tangible. You get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so often I think one of the problems with sustainability is it's not as in your face as maybe some other challenges that people are working on around the world. There's so many aspects of the environment and environmental degradation that happens far away from where people are. They don't see it every day. And the solution can be clouded in just as much uncertainty. So to me, I always think that the types of projects that have staying power in communities are ones that people participate in and that they're able to see. So that is quite important. I'd love to just also start off with, maybe you both can give a little bit of an overview of your roles in One Tree Planted and how long you've been with the organization.
Yeah, I'll let Matt start since he's our CEO.
So, I was a university professor, 2 young kids, and I started a sustainable food packaging company, and companies that I knew wanted to help the environment were looking at what options were out there. And, I decided to start this charity that makes it easy for people or businesses to help the environment. And it's a team of 50 people now, and it's just been this incredible growth. But we have amazing partners, like yourself around there that are helping us. And we just want to make it easy for people to understand the importance of these projects. So, yep, founder, CEO, and it's just been an amazing journey so far.
And I joined about just over 2 years ago now. And I came on as an event coordinator, and now we have a whole events team that I'm managing. And it was a really cool time to join the team because it was still relatively small when I jumped on board, and just to see the progression of it in such a short amount of time has been really amazing. And it's just been really exciting to see the evolution.
Why do you think your partners that provide you all with the resources to help make these projects possible, why do you think they're leaning towards and passionate about trees? What do you think is it about that kind of excites them and gets them to want to see these types of projects happen?
Yeah, so
Go for it, Jodie.
Okay, yeah. So first, maybe for the listeners, I can differentiate between our large-scale reforestation projects, which is our one-for-one model that Matt was speaking about before. So we do have those large-scale reforestation projects all over the world. And as mentioned, the model for that is simple. It's $1 plants, one tree. My focus as the events manager is more at a community level, working with partners like yourselves. So we facilitate community events for our volunteers in urban areas, our corporate donors who often want to also get out and connect with the cause, get their hands dirty. And I think for all the reasons that Matt mentioned before, planting trees for our partners is so important because it connects to so many larger issues, larger storylines. A really good example for reforestation, for instance, is a project that we have in the Pacific Northwest where we're planting trees in riparian areas to benefit salmon habitat, which ultimately leads to increased food sources for orca whales. So we call that our Orca project. And I think just the overall connection of trees to just larger ideas and larger impact is what's really special. And at more of a community level, I think that it's just so meaningful for people living in urban spaces to get out there and physically plant the tree, get their hands dirty, be around their community while doing that, and really feel like they're making an impact right in their backyard.
Yeah, really well said. The fact that ecosystems are so connected to one another, and that you can have this kind of ripple effect by doing something upstream, right? Like in that example that you gave, and help a river to heal and be productive, so that all the way to the ocean you wind up having an impact. I think that it's also wonderful for people to hear stories like that and to look around their own neighborhoods and communities in a different way, when they start to become active in those different types of projects. For us, many times when we bring community members out, for some of them, it might be their first time planting a tree. For others, it might be their 100th tree that they've planted, right? But it all is extremely meaningful. Because I think that besides the tangibility of the tree, it helps people to just frame how they think about nature in a different way, right? It's something that's not us and them, but more so something that they can have a hand in, which is really important. So, Kristin, I'd love for you to jump in and share just a little bit about how One Tree Planted has been working in partnership with Ideas for Us to give our audience a little bit of an idea as to what this project entails. And of course, then we'll delve into some stories about the impact that we've been able to make together.
Yeah, absolutely. What I think is really incredible about One Tree Planted is the emphasis on partnerships. And, you have the capacity to just go out and plant the trees yourself, but instead you're actually mobilizing projects that you believe in and people on the ground all over the world. And so, that can take a really incredible form through all of your stories and then also through us. And so because of our synergy with our missions to really just mobilize people in communities to solve global environmental issues with local solutions, we've been able to create a lot of really incredible impact this year. So through these partnerships, we've done so many different projects ranging from trash cleanups to shoreline restoration projects, community gardens, and tree plantings. And I kind of want to just throw out some numbers there to kind of give you an idea of the impact that we made only this year alone. We collected 351 pounds of waste through this partnership, planted 3,050 shoreline plants, and that includes like cypress trees and bare root shoreline plants, installed 11 community gardens in different schools and orphanages and just in communities, mobilized 1,738 volunteers to do this work, and of course planted 15,983 trees together. And so that's just so exciting to hear, especially once you get to kind of see these stories at a glimpse, really just knowing that people are actually not only helping the environment, but directly impacting their lives and their food security and their even job accessibility. So for example, a lot of the gardens that we have created together in sub-Saharan Africa, it actually provides a food source to a rural community that didn't have as much access to fresh cabbage and eggplant, all the other things that they're growing. And not only that, they're also providing green jobs to some of the farmers there, and they're also educating the next generation of people that are going to be doing that work. So that's what's so exciting about that, as well as each reforestation project has its own story with the different wildlife that's going to be impacted, the different restoration that's happening to the soil and the air. And, you know, that's really important in a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, and just mobilizing these people and letting them know we're here for them and that we're working together on the same mission. Here in Central Florida, shoreline restoration projects have been one of the most important things that we're doing, because we're identifying the issue of water quality. And so we're directly going in there and planting these plants that are going to sequester pollutants from the water, from the air into the soil. And you can see a visual difference between before and after we were there, not only providing food for wildlife and habitat, but genuinely just cleaning the water. And so many things are possible. I love the diversity of all of these projects. Really quick, I just want to talk about probably my favorite one, the one I was most excited to work with you all on, is the Uganda bamboo planting project. This project's really unique because I think it really identifies the needs for the community focus, as well as, you know, future sustainability of the project and long-term climate solutions. So for this specific project, there was a village by a river that was a farming village, and the farmers used unsustainable farming practices and tilled the soil up to the point of where the river was actually eroding back, and then the nearby community was being flooded very frequently. It was really dangerous. A lot of electrical wiring was in the water, so the entire community was displaced to go upland. And so what this project did is they went into the community, did a hive meeting about what they were going to be doing there, about why this is unsustainable farming and how to improve their farming practices to not only improve their crop output, but also heal the soil and reduce erosion. And they didn't stop there. They didn't stop at the education. They went in and planted 5,000 bamboo shoots along the riverbed to reduce erosion and heal the ecosystem. And this is an ongoing project. They're not just going in there and doing this one thing and leaving. They're going to continue to do these bamboo plantings and these educational workshops. And that, I think, is what's really unique and important about all of these projects. They're not just one and done. They are a long-term relationship with whatever entity they're working with. It's really about partnerships. It's about learning. It's about advocacy, but it's also about action. And that is what I think is the root of what Ideas for Us and One Tree Planted is doing. You know, we are teaching, we are telling people about the problem, but we're not stopping there. We are the boots on the ground. We are doing the solutions. And so that's what excites me so much about this partnership.
Wow, that's awesome to hear, Kristin. And just to piggyback off of that, I am so appreciative as well of this partnership. I think what we've been able to accomplish together is just amazing. You were actually one of the first organizations that I reached out to when I first started, I think my first week. So it's been really cool. I think that this is, yeah, it's just one of those partnerships that just works and just benefits everyone. And we're just able to have a really big impact together. It's really special. And yeah, just one thing that I did want to just touch on for listeners is that through our community projects like these ones, we're able to provide funding for activities other than just tree planting. So you mentioned, you know, dune restoration, your hive programs. So just to clarify that, we are able at a community level to support other restoration work as well. And I think that's been really cool in this partnership because you have so many really neat initiatives and projects going on that are not just specific to tree planting. You know, you've got the gardens and pollinator bomb workshops, and we were talking about synergy before, and I just think that all of that restoration work is so closely tied to planting trees as well, and it just all kind of works together. very synergetically. And I think that that's been really special about this partnership too, is that we're able to support those initiatives as well.
Yeah, I think about how, just in the values of Ideas for Us, right? We see ourselves as an organization that's a little bit more like an organism, right? We try to be adaptable and look at, different types of niches that we can expand in and out of to have an impact. And one of the aspects is mutualism as a main value of how Ideas for Us works. And I think that this really kind of epitomizes that type of partnership, but also in our values around inclusion. As an organization, we're headquartered in Orlando, Florida, and we're a small team, but we don't think small. We want to have a global impact. And for us, the only way to have a global impact is by empowering other people. And I think that that's a major value overlap that we have. It's one thing to have an organization, to build up funding, and to, have lofty goals. But there comes a time when you realize that it's, number one, impossible to try to do everything yourself. And number two, it's just so much more effective to focus on leaders in their own countries on the ground, give them the resources that they need to rise. And that's a big part of how we think. So it's great that all of these projects have really lent themselves to fostering these branches and groups, some of which we've been building since 2012, right? Like our team in Uganda. I mean, it's amazing how the internet works with social media and all of these things. And I still remember the day I was sitting in a cafe and I had commented about a post on, unfortunately at that time, the elephants were going through some really tough poaching years. And I commented on a post from a Ugandan nonprofit about the elephant poaching. And someone responds to me on the comment, and then they just start messaging me in my inbox. We begin a conversation with one another about conservation. And it turns out that this gentleman was Masareka Adidas. And he is our, leader of Ideas for Uganda since 2012. And, they became our first international branch. And, we've been able to continue action projects with them for now, my goodness, almost 10 years now. It'll be 10 years this year. So it's amazing how those things can come together. And he's gone to medical school and is a doctor and runs a clinic. We've put solar panels on his clinic. I mean, there's just so many different things that come together when you view the work of an organization as empowering other people. It's pretty fantastic. I'd love to hear just about what are some of your goals for 2022, right? We're in a new year. It's what the United Nations calls the decade of action, right? We know that there's this looming deadline of 2030 out there, where if we don't take action by then around climate change, we will reach a known tipping point of being able to thwart the worst of climate change. So I think it's important to mobilize in bigger ways than ever before. We'd love to hear a little bit about what you guys are excited for this year and what we can look to One Tree Planted to be active in.
I'll jump in. I mean, for Jodie's part, I'm sure just doing more tree planting events that are around the world, because I feel that just inspires people to realize the importance, of trees, because people just, it's a tree, it's a number, but then when they're out there and they're getting their hands in the dirt, one, it's inspiring, it's educating. And then, we want them to leave and say, oh my God, that was amazing. What else can I do? So, that's in Jodie's part, and I'll let her go from there. So continue to grow that. To me, it's always been build the brand, because when you think about a reforestation organization out there, I think that when I started this, there wasn't a lot that maybe come top of mind, or if any, right? So now continue to grow that corporate culture, still want to maintain true to our values from when we started this. We have an amazing team. Everybody chips in together. It's this family approach that we have here at One Tree Planted. But going to the bigger things that we are looking at is better monitoring protocols. Because one thing I always said is when somebody donates, it's like, how do I know that tree was being planted? And then the other one is it surviving, right? So somebody said to me, it's easy to plant a tree, but can you grow a tree? So true, right? So, we have a couple people on the team that are flying to the sites, equipping those partners on the ground with the right resources and tools that they need. We're not the organization that dictates to them, this is how, you do it. We're like, what do you guys need? How can we help? And then here's what's going on in British Columbia. Maybe there's some good takeaways that you guys could apply here, but we're giving them the drones, teaching them how to fly it. And it's for analyzing the landscape so they have the better perspective. And at the end, when we can take that modeling and show it to a potential donor, I think it makes a big difference than just getting a 40-page report and them having to read through that, getting great photos from the ground, showing the satellite monitoring to showing that this work is indeed happening. And then we're working on like some portal systems so that donors can log in and just see at what stage is my donation. I gave you $20. And, to me, it's always like, from what I've seen, you get a receipt that says, thanks for your $20 donation. But we want to bring people along for the journey, right? And them to be excited and share with their friends saying, oh my God, check out this project that we're doing in Uganda. You guys should help, or just checking it out. But then you need to show what stage is it? What's going on? Because, a lot of our team were at COP and, there's a lot of great organizations out there doing incredible work, but, it's a lot of like big lofty goals and numbers. What I think that people need to see out there is action happening. And I say this to our entire team all the time. I'd much rather go out tomorrow to Florida and see you guys, but 2,000 trees in the ground, and get whatever we can locally doing this stuff, than talk about 20 million trees and take years to get to that, because then people forget about it, falls by the wayside. So it's always been about action, showing people. And then like anything in life and business is, what worked well, what didn't work so well, and what can we do to make it better? And that's what we all are striving to do. Keep doing it better, continuing to inspire people to do more. And like Jodie said, it's beyond just planting trees. This is the environment. It's a big picture. There's a lot of things that are connected holistically. And then when you can show people how these dots are being connected, they're like, oh my God, I never realized that. And I brought CEOs of some big companies out to tree planting events that were local. And then he was like, wow, I never knew that. We need to create a one-pager and circulate this, in our company. And imagine you have 50,000 employees and they're the CEOs now because he was at this event that took half the day and he's seeing something he did not know. So again, it's this ripple effect that you mentioned, and all this stuff just continues to grow. So for 2022 goals, just continue to do it better.
Well, that's a great point, Matt. I think sometimes companies, know that sustainability is important, but they don't see it, meaning they're not having that kind of personal touch, to really drive home not just the value of the trees, but also the value to the team, in team building, in having a shared experience that can, affect how they think about sustainability. It's definitely something that can transform companies, and I think that often too many people see the environment and business, the environment, economics, the environment and people and social issues at odds with one another, but we really believe that, companies are going to be doing business regardless. They have to have the tools and they have to have the wherewithal to become more sustainable, right? I always say, bring me the most polluting company out there, right? I want to work with them as long as they're wanting to get better, right? And I think that, the last thing that anyone should be doing is vilifying companies that are trying to make steps in the right direction. Certainly, I'm not a fan of greenwashing in any way whatsoever, right? We've got to have real results and measurable impact. But, good behavior should be rewarded. And there are a lot of companies out there that are trying. And I think that we're going to see more of that this decade, hopefully, too.
Couldn't agree more, 100%. And there's some companies out there that get a bad rap, based on, what they do, but they're trying to do it better. They're reaching out to us, trying to figure it out, and they've got some significant amounts of funding that can make a positive impact. And I use the word enlighten. So we talk about these amazing projects, and then how, you plant the trees here, it's helping with water quality, or, it's helping with soil quality, or like Jodie mentioned with this project in the Pacific Northwest. Not only are we planting trees along this critical, rivers and streams, how it's helping with the Chinook salmon, which goes the resident orca whale. Who would ever, have thought of that? And I went to a conference, and it was like hundreds of salespeople on there because they were contributing their funding to this project. And a lot of grown men were almost in tears when they watched the video, but inspired. And they all came up to us and like, oh my God, I never knew that. But going to your point, totally agree. I think that we can be that catalyst to be looking at doing things better, contributing more. I think some companies were skeptical. Is this really going to work? But, with the situation we're in right now with COVID, we saw when people weren't going to work, doing this and that, in 3 months, waterways were becoming cleaner, air quality was getting better. So in 3 months of making, a change, you saw the results. So I think for all of us here, we're seeing companies and people now saying, environment's top of mind, we need to do more.
Yeah. I also just want to chime in there and say that I think that our events are actually pretty critical in this too, because we have so many organizations and companies that come out to our community initiatives or come out to a private event. They see it usually just as an opportunity to take some photos and maybe get their hands a bit dirty. And then they get there and our planting partners educate them and talk about the history of the area, why this work is needed. And so many times we have feedback from them just talking about how inspired they were, how they want to do more. They want to do more employee engagement events. They want to come out to our community initiatives. They want to donate to our larger reforestation projects. So I think when it comes to inspiring corporate groups, getting them out within their communities, getting them to events like the ones that we've been organizing together is so key in changing mindsets and really inspiring people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too that so many of these aspects have ripple effects that employees will take home with them, right? We see this with a lot of our gardening programs where they'll come out and volunteer with fleet farming. They'll do a pollinator garden planting with us. And all of a sudden it starts them thinking about composting at home, and diverting food waste, looking at native landscaping, right, for their lawns, seeing the retention pond in their backyard in a different way and wanting it to be planted and not just an ugly grass ditch sloping down into the water, right? It really changes perspectives. And when you think about how, there's companies big and small out there and they have local presences, it can really make a big impact. We've worked with, people like Apple or T-Mobile or AT&T. These are big global companies, but they've got a local presence. And if the local Apple store or AT&T store or T-Mobile store can come and do something right in their community where they're located, right, it kind of almost humanizes these big brands. And I think that there's a high premium on brands aligning with values right now, because we know that people, especially millennials, especially Gen Z, will purchase products and spend more money on products if they align with their values, right? I think that voting with your dollar is definitely one way that people try to kind of take some of the power back as to the way that the world is going. And thankfully, companies are realizing these kinds of things. So, Kristin, I'd love to just jump over to you again for a moment. I was looking just now over the list of all of the wonderful projects that we were able to accomplish in 2021. I'd love maybe if you could just share a little bit about another one that was, one of your favorites here. I was thinking of the Dune Planting, of course, but maybe another perspective internationally, because it really is incredible. So many of our teams on the ground are just so good at bringing the community together, getting a lot of people to turn out and take part in these projects. So I'd love for you to share just a little bit more about what the boots on the ground action looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the root of both of these missions is really just like the people and the community. And, they want to not only do something good, but also be encouraged, because we're all coming together to face this colossal monster that is climate change. And so the best way to be encouraged about it is to do something about it. And every time I go to one of my events, just talking locally, the energy there is so uplifting, and you can tell that every person there goes home feeling so much better. And they'll be like, oh, I can come. I've heard kids say like, I can't wait to come back and see this tree when I'm grown up and it's grown up. And it's just really beautiful to see that it actually impacts people, and that it really makes a difference in their life. And that takes so much of a bigger scale when you're talking about internationally, when sometimes the hurt and the need is so much greater than it is here. And it's really important that we kind of invest and show like our support as well, and learn from them as well as having them learn from us, because their organizing techniques are really impressive. Like Clay was saying, they get so many people out to their events. They get such a rallying behind the effort from the community. So for example, in both the Guinea and the Uganda reforestation, they had like the mayors of each town attend the reforestation and give a speech. It is an entire ceremony almost when they do their tree plantings, and they get hundreds, 50 to 100 people out there like ready to do it. And they do these like celebrations, and I think one time there was a reforestation day in Ghana where they genuinely had a band come out and play in celebration of this work. So it is so celebrated there, and that's something that I would like to kind of replicate here. I don't know if I can get a whole band out to every one of my tree plantings, but it's a really good example of what this should look like, with all the effort that comes behind this, and all of the support that there is behind the community. But talking more about some of the projects that I think were really impactful is the school gardens. I think is really important, because malnutrition in rural Kenya and Uganda and Rwanda are some of the most specific ones that we targeted with this funding round. And so with other partners, to give some shout outs to Fatanye in Rwanda, and Wild Now Foundation and the Urban Garden Initiative, and Keen in Kenya. They all worked with us to identify schools with the greatest needs, and also orphanages. We did 2 orphanages, one in Rwanda and one in Kenya. And so we took the kids and brought them into building the gardens. It wasn't just like, here's how you plant a seed. They were part of the entire situation. And what, like I said earlier, this isn't let's build the garden and go. There is consistent funding set aside for maintenance, and there is consistent education programs where these children are learning how to grow their food, and then they'll be able to eat while they're at school, and also have this information and knowledge for the rest of their lives. This is a completely life-changing knowledge that you can give to somebody, is just give them the ability to feed themselves, feed their family, and it will have a rippling effect. Some of the gardens, especially in DRC, have an incredible output. I'm excited to share with you this document of all of our summaries of all these projects that we did this year. You can see in DRC, they have cabbages 3 times the size of my head. They have the best green thumbs that I've ever seen. And, every time that we are able to support their projects, they're able to expand that garden even bigger and continue to feed people even more. And so that, I think, is one of the most important projects that we can do, because it's not only helping the environment, but it's also directly feeding people. And at the end of the day, we want to identify the immediate needs as well as the long-term goals of, making a better planet for the planet and the people. So that, I think, would be probably my favorite type of project that we've been doing. But genuinely, I just love the diversity. I love that we've been able to do pollinator gardens and helping out the bees and making communities more beautiful, and so many cleanups, and just the partnerships that we've been able to create through these projects have been so amazing. Another really important one that I want to touch on is the fruit tree planting at the Farm Workers Association. They're giving a voice to farm workers who are essential workers that have been horribly treated by our systems in the United States. And so with this, we were able to kind of share stories about what that looked like. And so a lot of us learned about food justice and environmental justice and what that looks like. So we had a beautiful conversation before the fruit tree planting, and then we acknowledged our appreciation towards the planet, which is something that I've never done before. The Farm Workers Association lead had us do a very old ritual where we would thank the sun and thank the earth and thank the people around us before we did the tree planting to kind of connect you. So that was really unique and beautiful. And then that whole event just had an energy about it where everyone was really ready to connect with each other and with the trees that they're planting. And it was a spiritual thing, and it was really beautiful. And so that, I think, is my best example of a local project that made me feel the most connected to, you know, our international partners and the whole commission behind this mission.
Well, Kristin, that's beautiful. I mean, it's amazing how, you know, maybe at face value to someone who doesn't, you know, eat, sleep, and live this every day, to them it's just a tree, right? But to us, it's an artistic statement. It's a cultural event. It's habitat for wildlife. It builds soil, right, which is our largest carbon sink, you know, in the world besides the ocean. And you know, it's just the benefits of this just keep compounding. And I'd also really just appreciate hearing that not only are the communities reacting in such a wonderful way, you know, and making these things kind of culturally relevant to them and exciting, but that there's also an aftercare program. I think an important thing for our listeners to learn is that, you know, a lot of tree plantings happen, but they're not as well thought out as, you know, the ones that One Tree Planted are doing. And they're also not having an opportunity for tree aftercare. There's unfortunately a really high tree mortality out there. And I'm just really thrilled to hear that so many of our projects have continued care built into the costs to be able to help with that. You know, One Tree Planted, I'd love to hear from you guys too. You know, that's kind of a step above and beyond, right? For you all to focus on and to emphasize. There's a lot of tree planting groups out there that don't go that extra mile to make sure that the trees survive and you know, have a healthy tree life. Maybe you can share a little bit about why emphasize on that. Why not just focus on just the planting, but also the care of the tree as well?
I'll let Matt
Go for it, Jodie, or me?
Oh, okay. Well, I can speak to a community level and what we do with our community partners for sure. Well, I think, and this kind of ties in also to like our goals for the next year, but I think something that's really important to us is listening to our planting partners. So we have a large network of community planting partners that we work with to facilitate these events. And it's been really great establishing those relationships. And we actually finished 2021 off by sending out a survey to all of our community planting partners just to assess their needs and what's really important to them, and, you know, how we can better provide support and where the funding needs to go to really make the most of it and just have successful tree plantings and events. And that is something that's come up multiple times with our events. You know, our planting partners need funding not solely for the trees, but also to take care of them too. And that's important to us. It's one of our values. We don't want to just throw a tree in the ground and, you know, hope for the best. So yeah, I think really at the end of the day, it just comes down to putting the funding where it really needs to go. And we know that that it has to go beyond just that one action of putting the tree in the ground, providing that support for, you know, the years.
And I'll jump in here with a couple of things for what you're mentioning is, you know, if we give whatever the amount of funding is for them to go plant the tree, and then you go back a year later or 2 years later and 50% are gone or 70% are gone, you know, that's not what you want. That's not productive. It's not good resource. So, you know, when we plant a tree, you know, One Tree Planted, you know, we receive $1. Even doing it at $1 is difficult, right? And yeah, and I always say there's 4 components to planting a tree. You have your site preparation, you have the cost to grow the tree, you have the component to plant the tree to the professional tree planters or the community, and then you have the monitoring and the maintenance. And there's a lot of groups, like Jodie was saying, where they're looking for that additional funding for the maintenance of it, watering the trees, checking on it, making sure that they survive. So it's a critical, important. Any donor that goes, they want to make sure, hey, my trees are surviving, and what, only 50% survive? But, when you do it at the dollar, sometimes depending on the tree species, comes to 60, 70 cents or 50 cents. And the cost to put it in the ground is 10, 15 cents. What's the site prep and what's the monitoring? So we do the best we can. We have a really sophisticated team vet the projects, look at it. But one of the key criteria is, what's your tree survivability record? And we're giving funding to organizations who have decades of experience, and we shoot for 80% or more, in terms of a track record. And then with Mother Nature, there's some unforeseen things that can happen, and I always use this example all the time, but we did a tree planting project in June, in Colorado in June, and it snowed a foot the next day. Well, it's not supposed to snow in June, but these things are happening. And one last piece, because I won't be long-winded here. In Indonesia, they're experiencing a lot of forest fires, and Indonesia, had a lower tree cost for us to get it in the ground. And they didn't have equipment to put out the fire. They're putting out fires with their flip-flops, with their sandals and stuff. And they didn't have fire hose equipment to push the water out to protect this, in terms of what they spent, years to they planted. So when we looked at the numbers, we could spare some additional funding, and we sent them water pumps from one of our donors. We sent them, funding so they could purchase a truck to react quickly to get to a fire and put the proper equipment in. And that's important, so, Jodie said it, I said it. It's not just a tree. It's not just a tree number. I'm not just trying to do it at the lowest possible cost. We want to make sure that these projects are successful, they're doing it right, and it's in everybody's best interest.
Very well said. I think that rising to the occasion where there's need, and also assuring that it's not kind of flash in the pan, plant some trees and they're kind of left to their own accord. I've even heard some numbers around tree mortality as high as 80%, right? When trees are just left on their own, to try to survive. And it kind of makes sense, because this is why things like an oak tree will drop so many acorns, right? And just a few of them wind up surviving. There's a lot of things that are out there that can do in little trees, unfortunately. But, that's, I think, another aspect of why these partnerships are so great, because people in the community gain an invested interest by going back again and again and again and caring for these plants, right? It can be transformative for them and have ripple effects in many, many, many ways that are far greater than just the tree itself even. So I want to thank you all today for coming on and sharing with us about One Tree Planted. I'd like to just turn it over now. First of all, where can our listeners find more information about One Tree Planted? And then I'd love for just some final thoughts from everyone here on the podcast before we bring it to a close.
I guess the best would be, onetreeplanted.org. There's a lot of information. We put a lot of work into making it simple to kind of navigate the site and find what you're looking for. There's an 800 number there. We have an amazing customer service team that love to answer people's questions. And then, to close it out to the listeners, I think one thing that's important is the nimbleness in terms of reacting to these things that are needed, like getting the trees in at the nursery so that organization on the ground could have those trees, and people kind of think, oh, we donate to you and you're going to go out tomorrow and plant it. There's a lot of planning and work that goes into this. Your team does, our team does, but I think that nimbleness has really helped us, and also helped organizations on the ground that, they have a shortfall of funding and they need to get that order in, or to help with whatever it might be. And we always try and maintain that nimbleness. And I think it's important. And we're going to continue to be that nimble organization that can show action, and be there as a resource to help in any way.
I would just say that, I just want to hit home how important our partnerships are, just working in events. The work that we do, our events, we're only as good as our planting partners. So just want to emphasize that we really value the work that we're doing together, and that all of our planting partners are doing. And yeah, just want to keep supporting that and moving forward and making further impact. And I'll also add that we have a really cool Instagram, and we're on socials, TikTok, Facebook. So you can also check us out on there.
Fantastic. Kristin, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just kind of want to remind listeners that, you know, you're not in this alone, and there are so many people here standing with you, helping our planet, and, you know, join our mission. It's not difficult. You can do it whether we're there or, and One Tree Planted is everywhere. So they have all their events up on their website, and you can just sign up through that platform. But definitely give us a follow and join this mission, because, you know, you're not alone, and there's so much that we can accomplish together. You know, this year looks like One Tree planted 27 million trees, and, you know, it's thanks to the people on the ground, and that goes for us too. So it's about the mission, it's about you all, and it's about coming together to do this work. So thank you for listening, and join us.
Can I add one more thing in? I don't know if you want to edit it back to before, but I also want to mention that one of our community initiatives takes place in April, and we'll be having around 100 events worldwide that are open to the public at no cost. Hopefully we'll have a few with you at your various locations and branches. But yeah, just throwing it out there to the listeners. Keep posted on our website. They will be listed hopefully within the next month or two. But yeah, we're rolling that out now, and it's really excited about it. It's going to be a big one. Yeah, fingers crossed everything is safe to move forward with by that point.
Absolutely. And, you know, I love how over the years it's gone from Earth Day to now so many environmental organizations celebrate Earth Month, right? And we just do so many things all through the month of April because it's, you know, it's Earth Day every day, of course.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's really been a wonderful pleasure. You know, we're very thankful for all of the help and assistance, and you know, most importantly, we're just so thankful for our amazing volunteers all around the world who come out in these communities and take part in this. It's transformative. It's things that the kids will remember for their whole lives. And, you know, to me, I can think back to many times in my own life where environmental action as a little boy still has an effect on me today, and haven't recovered from it yet. And, you know, I just think, you know, that's kind of the exciting and tangible, is this whole generation of people who feel as though, yes, there are environmental problems, but that they can do something about it. So thank you all so much. This has been another official Ideas for Us podcast. Thank you so much to our listeners. Please visit ideasforus.org to learn more about all the wonderful things that we do, and we will catch you next time. Thank you very much. This is Clayton Ferrara, Executive Director, and Happy New Year, everybody.